Hey y'all, it's Kreeby. And okay, raise your hand if you've ever been lost on a road trip and just felt like something was a little off. These 3 stories people have shared with me all start that same way. Stranded or turned around in the middle of nowhere, and none of them end the way you'd hope. The engine didn't sputter or lurch. It just stopped, clean and final, like something had reached under the hood and pinched a wire. I coasted to the shoulder and sat there a moment with my hands still on the wheel, listening to the tick of the cooling metal and the wall of crickets outside. No bars on my phone. None on Sarah's either. We were somewhere between Crossville and nowhere, a 2-lane road with tree lines so close on both sides they almost touched overhead, and it was 12:17 in the morning. I got out to check the engine, mostly out of habit. I'm an electrician by trade, so I know what I'm looking at under a hood, and I knew within 90 seconds that it wasn't something I could fix on the shoulder in the dark. Fuel pump. I was crouched at the front of the car with my phone's flashlight when I heard Sarah say, from inside the car, quietly and without drama, "There's a man." I stood up. He was already at the edge of the tree line on the passenger side, maybe 40 feet back, just standing there. Not approaching yet, just present, like he had stepped out of the trees and then paused to let us notice him, which was its own kind of strange. He walked over in no particular hurry. 50s, maybe, work boots, canvas jacket, the kind of face that has been outside a lot. He said his name was Dale and that he had heard the car and came to see if we needed help, which was plausible enough. He said he lived about a mile up a path through the woods, that his wife was home, that we were welcome to use the landline. I thanked him and told him we'd sit tight for now. He nodded, but he didn't leave. He stood at the front of my car and talked about the road, about how people broke down out here more than you'd think, about a family he'd helped the previous summer. The details were specific in a way that felt rehearsed rather than remembered. He kept the conversation easy, unhurried. I noticed he was facing me but not watching me. His eyes kept going to the tree line behind my car, to the south. Not nervous glances, deliberate checks, like someone confirming that something was still in position. I said, "What are you looking at back there?" He said, "Nothing. Deer maybe. They come out at night." I said, "Yeah." He offered again to walk us to his house. He said the path was well worn and his wife would probably still be up. He said the word wife twice in that sentence, which I noticed but didn't react to. Sarah had gotten out of the car by then and was standing close to my side. She hadn't said anything since she'd spotted him. I could feel her waiting on me, which meant she was unsettled and trying not to show it, which is its own kind of signal between 2 people who know each other well. I told Dale I appreciated it, but that I'd already reached someone, which was a lie. I kept my voice level and my face neutral, because if I was wrong about him, I didn't want to insult a man who was trying to be helpful. And if I was right about him, I didn't want him to know I was watching the tree line now too. He checked the trees again. South side, same spot. His weight shifted forward just slightly onto the balls of his feet, and I recognized that for what it was because I've seen men stand that way before, deciding something. I said, "We're good, Dale. Thanks for coming out." Something in my tone must have settled it. He nodded, said to honk if we changed our minds, and walked back to the tree line, not toward the north where a path to a house might reasonably be. South. The same direction he kept looking. He walked into the trees and disappeared. I got Sarah into the car and locked the doors and told her to stay down below the window line. She didn't argue. I turned off my flashlight and sat in the dark and watched the south tree line through the windshield. For 11 minutes, nothing moved. Then a shape separated from the trees, south side, and stood at the road's edge. Not Dale. Taller, thinner, standing very still in a way that didn't read as hesitation so much as patience. It stood there for a moment and then moved back into the tree line. 30 seconds later, another shape appeared at the north side, closer to the car, maybe 20 feet. Stood there too. Same stillness. I understood then what the checking had been. Dale hadn't been watching for deer. He'd been watching for people he'd brought with him, watching to see if they were ready, watching to see if we'd agreed to walk into the woods before he signaled them to move. The conversation, the wife, the specific details about the family he'd helped, all of it was time. He had been buying time, and I had cost him enough of it that whatever the arrangement was, it hadn't come together the way it was supposed to. A truck came around the bend from the north 20 minutes later, and I stood in the road with my flashlight until it stopped. I talked the driver into staying with us while Sarah called a tow from his phone. He was an older man, a retired schoolteacher, and he sat in his truck with his hazards on for 40 minutes until the tow arrived. And I have never been more grateful for another person's presence in my life. The tow driver said he'd run this road for 15 years and knew most of the people who lived out this way. I described Dale. He said there was no one by that name on this stretch that he knew of, and the nearest occupied house in either direction was over 4 miles out. There was no house a mile into those woods. There was no wife. There was only the dark, and a man who knew exactly how long it took to walk someone far enough in that they wouldn't find their way back. I woke up because of the cold. The engine had been off long enough that the heat had bled out completely, and my breath was fogging in front of me, and that's when I saw the shape through the passenger window. Let me back up 2 minutes. I'm a logistics coordinator for a freight company out of Chicago. I drive long routes alone maybe 4 or 5 times a year, usually down to see my folks in Batesville, Arkansas. I've done this specific trip, I-57 south through rural Illinois, enough times that I know the rest stops by heart. The one near Marion, mile marker 44 or thereabouts, has decent lighting and a men's room that actually gets cleaned. I pulled off around 2:45 a.m., killed the engine, set a 1-hour alarm on my phone, and reclined my seat. I was asleep inside of 3 minutes. I know this about myself. I go out fast. So when I woke up at 3:12 by my phone's clock and saw through the fogged window that there was a man crouched beside my passenger door, I did not immediately panic. That is not how my brain works. My first thought, and I want to be clear this was my genuine first thought, was that someone had car trouble. I sat up slowly. He was crouched low, not quite sitting on the concrete, more like a catcher's stance, right beside the door handle. His face was angled down toward it, not looking through the window at me, looking at the handle, just completely, utterly still. I said, out loud to myself, "Okay, he's checking if it's locked," which was a rational thing to think. Maybe he'd seen the car and needed help and was trying to figure out if someone was inside before knocking. That is a thing a normal person might do. So I knocked on the window from my side. He didn't move. I knocked harder, 3 solid raps, and said loud enough that I was sure it carried, "Hey, you okay out there?" Nothing. He didn't flinch, didn't look up, didn't shift his weight. The position he was in, knees bent, shoulders forward, head tilted down, would have been uncomfortable after 30 seconds. He'd been there the entire time I'd been sitting up, probably longer. I want to tell you I wasn't scared yet. I was getting there, but I was still working through possibilities. My brain kept generating them like a machine that didn't know how to stop. Medical episode. Sleepwalking, which I know sounds ridiculous, but I'd read something once about how sleepwalkers can fix on objects and stay completely still for stretches. Drugs. There are a lot of sad, specific ways a person ends up crouched in a highway rest stop at 3 in the morning, and I was cycling through every single one of them. I started the car. This is where I expected the situation to resolve itself. You turn on the headlights, flood the area with light, normal person snaps out of it or looks up or at minimum startles. It's a loud engine, a 2019 Jeep Grand Cherokee. It turns over with authority. He stood up, not fast, not slow, just a single, unhurried unbending of his body from that crouched position until he was fully upright. He was taller than I expected, and he was wearing a dark jacket with the collar turned up, and he was maybe 30 feet from the restroom building at the far end of the lot. He did not look at my headlights. He did not look at me. He turned, slowly, and walked toward the restroom. Steady pace, no limp, nothing wrong with how he moved. He went inside. I sat there for probably 45 seconds running through this. He walked away. That's what a normal person does when they get caught doing something they shouldn't. He was casing cars, trying handles, and when I turned on the engine, he decided to cut his losses. I had an explanation. It was coherent. I almost convinced myself. Then I looked at the rest stop lot. There were 4 other vehicles parked there besides mine. A semi at the far end, lights off, driver probably sleeping. A minivan, 2 other sedans. I hadn't paid attention to them when I pulled in because there's always a few cars at a rest stop even at 3 a.m., people doing exactly what I was doing. But I was looking at them now, really looking, and I noticed that the front passenger door of the minivan was open. Not wide open, just ajar, the interior light on, that dim glow you get when a door hasn't fully latched. I told myself the wind. There was no wind. I could see the trees at the edge of the lot, the scrubby Illinois tree line, completely still. I called 911. I want to say I felt stupid doing it, and I did a little, but I called. The dispatcher was calm and told me a trooper was about 20 minutes out. I said I'd wait. I watched the restroom building the entire time. Nobody came out. The trooper arrived in 17 minutes. I got out and met him in the lot and explained it, the man crouching, the minivan door, all of it. He was professional, not dismissive. He walked over to the minivan and looked inside with his flashlight, and then he came back to me with a different look on his face and asked me to wait by his cruiser. He went into the restroom building. He was in there for maybe 4 minutes. When he came back, he was on his radio. He told me the restroom was empty. I asked about the minivan. He looked at me steadily, the way cops look at you when they're deciding how much to say, and told me there was a woman in the passenger seat of the minivan. She was unconscious, zip-tied at the wrists, and had duct tape over her mouth. She was alive. They found her when they checked the lot because of my call. That part is what I keep thinking about, that she was right there, 40 feet from where I'd been sleeping, and I almost just drove away with my rational explanations and my logistics coordinator brain that needs everything to make sense. But here is the thing I cannot explain away, the thing that still does not fit any version of events I can construct. The trooper, while we were waiting for backup, asked me to describe what the man was doing when I first saw him. I told him, crouched beside the passenger door, looking at the handle, completely still. He nodded slowly and said the woman's door, the passenger door of the minivan, was locked from the inside. She had managed, at some point, with her wrists bound together, to reach the lock and push it down. The man wasn't checking the handle to see if it was unlocked. He was crouched there, in the dark, for however long I had been asleep, waiting for her to try to open it from the inside so he'd know she was awake. My brother Danny said, "Turn here," before the GPS even finished recalculating, and I turned, and that was the first mistake. The rain was coming down sideways on Route 8, the kind of rain that makes your wipers useless and turns headlights into blurry suggestions. We were trying to get back to my place outside of Binghamton after our mom's birthday dinner in Utica, a drive I'd done 30, 40 times in my life. The GPS had frozen twice already. When it finally spoke again, it pushed us off the interstate and onto a county road I didn't recognize, and Danny said, "Turn here," and I turned. For the first few minutes, it was just a road. Trees pressing in on both sides, no lane markings, a surface that had been patched and repatched until it was more sealant than asphalt. Then the trees thinned and we came into a town. No welcome sign, no posted speed limit, no gas station or diner or any of the things that mark the edge of a place. It just began. Small houses close to the road, a short main block with dark storefronts, a church with an empty marquee. The streetlights worked. That's what I remember first, that the streetlights worked fine, and every single light in every single house was also on. I noticed the windows before Danny did. Every window in every lit house had a person standing in it, facing the road, not looking around, not moving, just standing there, centered in the frame, facing out. My chest went tight the way it does when you step off a curb wrong and your body processes the fall before your brain does. I didn't say anything. I slowed down without meaning to. "Why are you slowing down?" Danny said. "Look at the windows." He looked. He didn't say anything for a moment. "It's late," he said. "People are up." "Danny, they're all standing at the windows. Maybe there's something going on. Some event." I wanted to believe him. I really did. My hands were on the wheel at 10 and 2 and I could feel the dampness in my palms where they were pressed against the rubber. I kept driving because stopping felt worse than moving. The road curved slightly and the houses continued and every window continued to have its person. standing, facing out. An older woman in a yellow kitchen. Two shapes side by side in a narrow upstairs window, one taller, one short. A man in what looked like a living room, still in his work clothes, or what registered to me as work clothes, a dark shirt, tie maybe, just standing there with his hands at his sides. None of these people are doing anything, I said. They're looking at the rain, Danny said, but his voice had changed. It had gone flat in the way his voice gets when he's saying something he doesn't believe. I checked my phone. No signal. Not low signal, just the X where the bars should be. I tried the Maps app to see if I could at least get a cached view of where we were. It loaded a gray screen with a pulsing dot where I was supposed to be, and nothing around it. No road, no town, just the dot sitting in a gray field like we were floating. Pull up Google Maps, I said. I don't have signal either. Just pull up whatever you have cached. He did. Same thing. A dot in gray. The road we were physically on did not exist in his phone any more than it existed in mine. The town ended the same way it started, without any indication, the houses just stopping and the trees coming back and the road going dark again. I pushed the car faster than I should have on a wet road, and I didn't care. My arms were cold from the shoulder down, that cold that isn't about temperature, that's about your body deciding something is wrong and pulling blood back from the places it doesn't need. Danny was quiet, and Danny is not a quiet person, which told me everything about where he was. We hit the on-ramp for the interstate, and I felt the concrete under the tires, and I said something out loud. Some syllable that wasn't a word, just a release. Danny looked at his phone for a long time before he said anything. Then he said, "It's 11:40. We had left our mom's house at 8:30. Utica to Binghamton is 2 hours on a bad night. We had been in the car for 3 hours and 10 minutes. I thought about that road. The GPS reroute had pushed us off the interstate, and from there to the on-ramp we had used was a distance I can drive in my sleep. 20 minutes, maybe 25 in bad rain. The town had not seemed long. A main block, maybe a dozen houses on either side. Another quarter-mile of road in the trees. 20 minutes of driving at most, if I was being generous. We had lost nearly an hour somewhere in that stretch. In the morning, I tried to find the town. I had Danny's phone and my laptop and a road atlas I keep in my car from before smartphones made them irrelevant. I drove that route again in daylight. I found the county road from the GPS reroute. I drove it start to finish. I found the on-ramp. The drive took 19 minutes. There was no town on that road. Not a house, not a structure, not a break in the trees. Both phones showed the same gray nothing on their maps for that stretch that they had shown the night before. What I keep coming back to is not the missing time, though that is the thing that wakes me up at 3 in the morning with my heart loud in my ears. It is the people in the windows. They were standing still. All of them. In every house, at every window, facing the road. Facing us, I realize now, facing the direction of any car that would come through. Like they were waiting. Like watching the road was a thing they had learned to do. A thing they did every night. A routine built around the possibility of cars that came through on rerouted GPS signals in the rain. Cars with people in them who were lost and didn't know it yet. When I close my eyes, I see the man in the dark shirt standing in his living room window, hands at his sides, watching us pass. And I think about the fact that we drove back to the interstate and got on and kept going, and I think about the town without a name on any map, still there, lights on, people in the windows. I think about what those people in the windows were waiting for us to do. And I think about how we did it. We drove through and kept going and made it back to the highway. And I think the only reason we are here to tell this story is because we did not stop. Alright, that's gonna do it for tonight. Road trips, man, they always sound fun until they don't. If you've ever been lost somewhere you really shouldn't have been, drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to hear it. Stay safe out there. And as always, friends, keep the lights on.